that many of us know intimately, talking about a topic that can get uncomfortable, talking about a topic that involves a lot of difficult conversations. We're going to talk about maintaining positivity, maintaining inertia through very difficult times. And for those of you who have been to Riveter events before, you know we are going to not pull any punches. We're going to be very specific about tactics. We're going to be very specific about how people deal with struggles. And we're going to pull from some of the best in the world and try to apply that very specifically to our own situation. We're going to talk a little bit about positivity porn later on. I will let others define that for you in a bit, and how that's maybe a frustrating way to go, unless that's your style. But we're going to talk about specifics. So I want to welcome our two speakers. It's a good a time as any to get started. I want to welcome our two speakers here today, and ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves. But folks, let's give a big round of applause to Brian Brandt, the CEO of Core Insights, and Martin McGovern from Career Therapy. Thank you to you both for joining. So real quick, as for the folks who are new here, the way we run these events, for the next 40 or so minutes, it is going to be a Q&A with the speakers. If you have questions, I highly encourage you to send them in. If you want to ask them yourself, you can type them broadly into the chat and I'll pick on you. If you want to keep them private, that's totally fine. Send them directly to me and I will ask them and not mention your name, but ask specific questions. It makes the event a ton of fun. For the last 15 to 20 minutes, we break up into networking groups. And so there will be small groups, maybe five to 7 people each. And what I want you to do for that is you'll go around, you'll share your name, you'll share the kind of jobs you're looking for, but you'll also share one specific thing that you do currently or that you want to be doing to deal with challenges, right? At the end, we're all going to go around and share, my name's Adriel, I'm looking for sales jobs in high technology companies. And my approach to dealing with rejection is I go for a run and then scream into a pillow. Next. So it'll be a nice way to go around and learn from each other a little bit. But on that note, folks, I'm excited to get started. Let's start with Brian. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and Core Insights.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Adriel, and hello, everybody. My name's Brian Brandt, and I've got a master's in global leadership and a bachelor's in accounting. And I don't use the accounting at all, so please do not ask me any accounting questions. That is a very dormant major for me. But I've got a company called Core Insights, and we are all about developing stronger leaders and stronger organizations. And we do that through a lot of training, typically focused on leadership and communication and organizational culture. We have a speakers bureau, so we speak at conferences that are in person back before COVID, and now we are on Zoom a lot. And then we do a lot of coaching, a lot of one-on-one coaching. Sometimes it's career transition. Sometimes it's, this morning was on public speaking, preparing somebody for a big speech. Sometimes it's leadership coaching and things like that. And then we have some books on different leadership topics. So we're usually in that leadership and communication and organizational culture space.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So I love that we got you here, Brian, because we're going to use you to leverage how you coach executives, high performing CEOs to deal with challenges. So that's the perspective you're going to come to us with. Martin, tell us a little bit about yourself, about Career Therapy and a lot of the coaching that you do.
For sure. Thanks for having me. So my name is Martin, and I created Career Therapy while I was working in the bootcamp space and the tech space with a lot of different startups and education organizations. And the main thing that I was trying to do when I started it was give folks who are not part of these education communities a place to connect. So I created this meetup group, and over the years, it just kind of evolved into a full-on coaching business and company now. And really what we're trying to do is I'm taking all the years of experience that I have from the marketing world. I worked in marketing and advertising at Fortune 500 companies for about 10 years or so. And I'm trying to reverse engineer that. So I took all that psychology and all that behavioral science, and I basically, helped companies get your money. And now I'm trying to reverse that. And so you take all those same skills, all those same techniques, and apply them to your job search so that you can get that money back from these companies. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm working with a number of different tech boot camps, helping people through pretty massive career transitions from like being a musician playing violin to being a coder, and how do those skills translate, and really helping people tell their stories and get into the persuasive side of the job search, the promotional side of the job search, and then the really hard part, which is maintaining your equilibrium, which the emotions just get you. So I'm excited to talk today about positivity and where my mindset is on it, and see where we can help y'all.
Man, Martin, are you saying that you're the guy whose fault it is that I bought Air Jordans at a 5% discount? That was you? 5% and it hooks me.
More so the credit card that you use to purchase them with.
Well, awesome. So thank you very much for the backgrounds. So Brian, I want to start with you, and I want to start by talking about mindset.
Yeah.
In the leaders that you work with and the leaders that you coached, the best performing ones, it is clear that all of them go through challenging times. That's just what it means to be a leader. What do you see across the best performers you work with in terms of mindset, in terms of approach to managing their businesses and managing their lives and careers?
Yeah, so with most all of them, I mean, they come to me with different issues and challenges, but as far as mindset and really moving forward, it tends to almost always come back to what really matters to you right now. What are the priorities that you have right now? What is it that you really care about? What is it that really needs your focus and attention? And then how are you spending time on those kinds of things? And so it really, so many times it comes about as really kind of unpacking what's going on in their current reality, what they want to see in the future, and then going, what's it going to take to get there? And are you blocking the time to do it? I mean, it's interesting how many times people say something is important, but then they're not spending any time on it. And so kind of time blocking and investing. And then, sometimes my primary role is accountability, checking in on them and saying, did you do what you said you would do? And because once people see some leverage there and they see some momentum, then oftentimes they're motivated to do it themselves. But until they do it, it kind of almost goes back to, I started teaching tennis when I was about 16, and I would trick people into doing the right stroke. And once they had that right stroke and it felt good and they saw the outcome, well, then they wanted to do it more and they wanted to repeat that.
Yeah, so for you, I like that a lot. For you, you think the best leaders are those who are super focused, very disciplined, and know who can use inertia and use momentum to keep going. Now, what
Absolutely.
happens? What happens? And you could use your own experience here, Brian, through very difficult moments. How do you coach leaders to bounce back? Now, you could share an example of one of the people you coached, and when they were hit really hard, a lot of people, pretty much everyone on this call just was hit hard because they lost their job one day.
Yeah.
That's a big hit. And I know COVID hit your business very big. So you can either give it in the example of one of your clients and what hit them and how they dealt with it, or in your own business, what did you do when COVID hit and all of a sudden things changed big time for you?
Yeah, I do think that the principles I used at the beginning of COVID and that I use with my clients, and then when I made a career, when I lost my job in 2003, I think they all apply. The mindset is, where do I want to be? And so in that case, when I lost my job, and what I do with a lot of clients is, what do you want life to look like 5 years from now? And then asking the question after you answer that, asking the question and answering, what do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? This is an opportunity to kind of recalibrate. And so a lot of times it's looking at that future and going, okay, if this is what I want things to be like, what am I going to do to get there? So to answer your question, when COVID hit, man, I saw pretty clearly, for a guy who's oftentimes with large groups and oftentimes traveling, those two that just went off the table immediately. And so I started spending a lot of time going, how can I maximize this time? What are the things that I say I never have time to do because I all of a sudden had time to do those? And so there were projects that I got busy on for work. There were projects I got busy on for home. I personally, and we'll probably get into this a little later, but I walked about 10 miles a day. And most of those times I was on the phone with somebody. Sometimes it was to check in on a client. Sometimes it was talk to a future client. Sometimes it was to connect with people that I worked with 25 years ago. But all of that about kind of moving things along, and some of it was about, caring for them, and there was anything I was trying to accomplish, I was just reaching out. But really it's that, okay, recalibrate. What do I want to see happen? How can I move the ball along, even though this is a pretty challenging time?
I like that a lot. Stephen Covey from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has that start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
That's what great leaders do. They start with the end in mind. So it's the same thing here. All right, so this is where I am, but where do I want to be? Where do I go?
Right.
And we're going to talk about specifics for that. Martin, I want to get you here. You work with a lot of people at transitional moments, folks who come out of a boot camp. They just spend a bunch of money and a bunch of time and say, bam, like I'm a data scientist. And you've got to tell them, congrats, bam, you're a data scientist, but it's going to be a while until somebody's paying you to be a data scientist, because that's just the statistic, right? It's going to be months, sometimes up to 6 months, sometimes more in great economies, until they're actually hired. How do you work with clients right at that transition moment to sort of prepare them and to help them take advantage of what's going to be a longer journey than maybe they might expect at first?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the first thing is you said, boom, I'm a data scientist. I wish they had that mindset. They come out of a boot camp that they just spent so much money on and so much time on. And the first thing they say is, I recently graduated from a data science program. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? We got to talk about what you do, not what you did. And so the first thing I have to do is actually convince them that they are data scientists, convince them that they are coders, convince them that they are these things. And the imposter syndrome is incredibly strong. So that's a really big piece of it, is to kind of not only just sit with them to manage expectations, which is a huge piece of it, but to change the way that they view this industry that they're getting into. And one of the weird things that I have to do is almost like bring down the excitement that they had going into this program and that they had getting into this new field and changing careers. And I have to keep explaining to people, like they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, just once I get that job, everything will be fine. Everything will be fixed. And I'm like, no, it won't be, because remember the last job that you thought that was going to be the thing that happened? As soon as you got into it, your boss was a jerk, or this coworker isn't really friendly. And, things might be great for a bit, but then they always plateau and they always change. And even if you stay in the job for 10 years, your coworkers will change, your boss will change. So this role is going to change. And so I'm constantly reminding people that things aren't as great as they expect them to be, but they're also not as bad as they think that they are. So what we're going through in the job search feels horrible a lot of the time. We're getting rejected. People aren't getting back to us. People are saying, oh, I got ghosted. And I go, ghosted? Tell me more about that. And they go, well, I haven't heard back in 3 days. And I go, 3 days for an employer feels like a minute. 3 days for a job seeker feels like an eternity. And so managing all of those expectations, all of those expectations, all of those emotions, and really setting a solid baseline that is based in reality, not in all of this other stuff, I think helps people last the 6 months, last the year that might happen in bad economies. Because it really is a matter of waking up and being diligent, to Brian's point of like, what are the things that I'm not doing on a daily basis, rather than what I hear from most people, which is, how do I get motivated? How do I get motivated today? And I go, motivation comes and goes. How do you get disciplined every day and do a baseline thing that you can repeat? So that's a really big thing that I work with people on.
Well, guys, you can tell Martin's passion. He got choked up in the middle of that. he just loves this, loves the work so much. Martin, I want you to, and Brian, I'm going to ask you a similar question after this, but Martin, you said, how do you stay disciplined, right? Motivation comes and goes. It's how do you do, we had a book club a week or two ago about the book Atomic Habits. And in that book, They talk a lot about being a systems thinker, not a goals thinker. Meaning, what do you do every day in order to continue to get better? Not like, what's this one thing that's a month or two away? What are some of the systems or the habits or the actual building blocks of discipline that your clients put together that bring them positivity and energy and success, whatever that might mean? We'll start with Brian. We'll start with Martin, excuse me, and then we'll go to Brian for a similar thing. But what are those building blocks, those daily actions, the things that you're most successful, whatever that means to you? Maybe they get a job faster, maybe they just have a better outlook, whatever that means to you. What are they doing?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is networking and doing it in a sustainable way. So everyone talks about networking. You have to network. You have to network. You have to go become an influencer online. People say a million different things. When in reality, to Brian's point, it's just getting on the phone and talking to people, right? Every single day. And not worrying is this person going to give me a job? Is this person the right person to reach out to? I'll have people spend 2 hours looking through lists of people on LinkedIn, and then they never reach out to anyone. And I go, what just happened? And they go, well, I didn't find anyone that I thought I would click with. I go, you have no idea if you click until you're in that conversation. So the people that tend to take the job search from 6 months down to 3, or from a year down to 6, depending on what's going on, those are the people that every day they're going, all right, I'm going to go talk to more people. I'm going to go talk to more people. I'm going to just figure out how to get into this industry. And the reason that works is, number one, the more exposure you have, the more opportunities you have, and the more people you meet, the easier it is to get referrals and things like that, versus job boards, which is so impersonal and robotic, and literally robotics. Robots are reading your resume. And so, and then the other thing is the emotional side of things. If you're just sitting at home, and this is something I experienced as a coach, I'm talking to people all day, but I'm, talking about career stuff. And then I turn around and I'm just by myself at night thinking about my business, and I start getting really negative about it. I got to go talk to other people and like get out of these cycles in my head. And my favorite thing is when someone goes, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to get that job. That job seems so hard, so difficult. I'm imposter syndrome, all day. And then I go, have you ever talked to someone who has that job? Or are you just looking at the job listing? Because the job listing is a lie. Like, it's marketing, it's BS, it's Frankenstein from 7 other things. Have you ever talked to a person who has that SOC analyst job or whatever it is that you're going after? And the person goes, oh no, I haven't. I don't know anyone who's in this role. And I go, so this is like a young advertiser wanting to be Don Draper, thinking that the world is this, like, the advertising world is this magical place. And then you get there and you find out you just send emails all day. Like, I said, go meet a SOC analyst. And this person comes back and he goes, so I met this guy, and the first thing he said is that this job is super boring and I could totally do it. And now I don't even want that job. I want this other job. And I was like, see, like, you built it up in your head so much that as soon as you talk to a real person, they could pop the balloon, show you reality, and everything becomes easier after that. And he just got a job last week. So those are the things that for me really help, is to, like, the internet is going to blow everything up. It's going to hype everything up. And then we need to step away and talk to real people to remember what reality looks like.
Brian, I want to come to you in a moment, but Martin, just a clarification. Do you advise that people set parameters or goals or actual, like, a number around something like networking? Do you say, hey, pick a number and then hit the number? Or, networking, you could do that 8 hours a day. You could do that 12 hours a day. You could do that 2 hours a day. And for any one of those, you might have similar results. How do you suggest somebody measure whether or not they're networking the right amount? Or
yeah, I make them pick the number, because if I give them the number,
pick a number, right? It's
yeah, well,
5 or 8.
a number of outreaches, not number of actual meetings, because we can't control who responds to us. We can only control who we reach out to. And so if someone says, I'm going to meet 5 people this week, I'm like, okay, do you know what that means? And they're like, what does that mean? I go, you're gonna have to spend like 50 or more like connection invites. And they go, oh, okay, no, I can't do that. And so I want it to be realistic to you, right? The best diet is the one that you'll stick to. The best workout is the one that you'll actually do. And so I say, how many emails can you actually send a day? Like, in this, it should be pretty simple at some point, but typically it's pretty small at first. It's like, I'll send 5 emails this week. And then as they get comfortable with it, it'll go up to 10, it'll go up to 15. And then there's constraints with how many meetings can you actually take a week. which it should always be more than what you think. But hey, I work with where people are at, right? If someone's an incredible introvert who has panic attacks like I used to when networking, I'm not going to say you have to go reach out to, 70 plus people. But if you are already in sales, I'm like, what are you doing? Double it. Like, let's get more out there.
Brian, what about you? What are some of the things that you've seen great performers do in long-term periods of challenges that allow them to be successful, whatever that means to them? Maybe a little better energy, a little more happiness, a little more comfortability, a little more success at the end of the road. What are some of the building blocks of discipline that your clients put into effect every day?
Yeah, so I'm going to hit it twofold. One is specifically on the job search front. It really has worked for them to help them and brainstorm who is it that they know, really thinking through all of their connections, really thinking through like who did you work with 20 years ago? Who are some of your vendors that you used to pay big money for? Who are some of the people that you've helped in different ways, maybe with their career transition and all of that, and really make, like Martin said, make a robust list and then systematically work it. And, I tell people all the time when they're in a transition, I'm like, I love the opportunity to help you. That feels good to me. I enjoy that. And I'll say, but you've got to help me help you. I've got to really understand what is it that you're looking for. If you say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," that that doesn't really help me to think through who do I know? What are the specifics? How can I connect you to somebody? But then once you've got that list and you've got your elevator pitch and you know what you're aiming for, really work that list. I tell them, put it in a spreadsheet. And if you email them, on March 1st, well, then probably on March 15th, you should make a phone call. And probably on March 28th, you ought to send a thank you note. But keep top of mind. So there's that discipline that really helps that. I'd be curious what y'all think, but I've found that when you're in a job search, those first week or two, it's a full-time job. You can easily put 40 plus hours into it. But after that, it usually tapers off. And then I think it's putting those other things in your life that are going to be healthy. Are you connecting with family and friends? And upbeat friends, probably. Don't get your Debbie Downer friend. That's not who you need to go hang out with. Find the upbeat friends. I find, like, during the beginning of COVID, I listened to a ridiculous amount of comedians on some of my walks because I needed that laughter. By laughing and smiling, it got those endorphins moving, and that was good and healthy. And again, I was outside a lot. I was getting that fresh sunshine. But I was also working on projects. There, going back to telling you about transitioning in 2003, there's a project in my backyard that is all about water runoff that, here we are 18 years later, and I can look back and remember accomplishing that project in a time where I didn't have a job. And that feels good. And it felt good then. And so it's about being disciplined to do the job search things, but then putting the other things into your life, volunteering, serving others, that are going to help you to be energized. And then they may also bring some connections as well.
I love that. I talk all the time about how you've got to have multiple balls in the air, multiple measures of success. Because if your only way to measure success is, did I get a job today?
Yeah.
And you count yourself as a failure day after day for 4 or 6 or 12 months, what are you doing to yourself? Like, there's more than, did I get a job today? There's, did I exercise today? Did I reach out to somebody today? Did I laugh today? And then specifically, what does that look like? I told myself, I know somebody on here is doing a 5 mile a day walk until they can walk all the way down to Georgia. Like, did I do my thing today? Did I hang out with my kids? Cause, like, let's be real, I've got time. Did you succeed on these multiple levels today? Now there's the reverse side of this. There's negative habits that we can have. There's bad is probably the right word to use, mindsets that really drain on you. And I know this is a difficult thing. And for everyone on this call who's a professional, who's been a professional for decades, and then all of a sudden, like, you're just not the job you've been saying you were, that is a tough hit to your identity, to esteem, and it's easy to spiral. First, Brian, then Martin. What are some of the negative habits that people have, that you find people have when going through difficult times, and be specific as you can. And if there's a way you help people get out of those, break out of those, what does that look like?
Yeah. I, I do think, I mean, it's almost the flip of what I just said. It's not being disciplined to do the things that are going to help you move your career along. It's focusing too much on the past. I mean, certainly we need to assess our past, but then we need to move on. And again, if we're beating ourselves up, or hey, what if, or I should have, those kinds of things. But this really is, have that opportunity mindset. This is an opportunity to make things better than they were. Like Martin was saying, everything wasn't perfect when you were fully employed, I'm sure. And so try to take advantage of this opportunity. But then also, yeah, beginning of COVID, I dropped some weight that w- traveling around eating too much fast food. So I was at home cooking, and I was exercising more. And so using this as an opportunity to address some of the things that we haven't addressed, and just, I think, flips it and makes it, hey, this can be a positive experience. And again, with the mindset of putting you in a better place. The other thing, I had a guy over lunch yesterday tell me that he remembered something I said in 2018, where he started looking at what are some other things that I would like to do with my career and with my life. And during COVID, he went to a 4 day a week work schedule. And so he started a new company that matched up using some of the natural talents and natural abilities and acquired skills that he had. So just kind of resurrecting some things, and allowing yourself the freedom to dream, and taking advantage of those on both personal and professional and relational side.
Yeah, I think just very simply around exercise is one small thing that it's easy to put aside, because there's a line my mom always used to tell me: if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. Right? If you got to be at the office by 8:30, well, you got to start your workout at 7, so you can shower at 8 and you have breakfast. Like, you got to schedule it in. If like you can kind of wake up at 8 or 9 or 2 p.m. Like, if you can kind of do that, it's much harder to do these things. So making sure exercise is scheduled in there is one small thing that is easy to skip, but so important to do. Martin, what about you? What do you find some of those negative spirals that the clients that you work with go through, and how do you coach them out of it?
Sure. Well, the one thing I want to hit on that you just mentioned was like starting your day at the same time. I've been running my own business for quite some time now, and you're right. Like I used to just be like, well, when's my first call? I'll wake up an hour before that, and like sometimes my first call's at noon, and I'm like, why did I waste the whole morning? And so I actually started doing a live stream at 8 a.m. every single morning on LinkedIn in order to give myself a deadline to get the day started. And so that's something that, like, once I did that, a whole bunch of other habits started forming around it that I wasn't even like expecting to happen, because I set just one stake in the ground of like, at least I know I'm doing this at this time. So that was super helpful. But when it comes to the negative habits, I do think being around the right people is pretty huge. Career therapy actually started the same time I got laid off from my last job. The business repositioned away from careers, and so the whole careers team was let go. Very interesting layoff where the person laying me off was also laid off, but it was a weird day. But we also kind of knew it was coming. And I remember, like, I had already, because I sort of had a little radar up, I was like, I feel like I need to connect with more people. And I created a meetup that allowed me, that actually the first meetup was the weekend that I got laid off. So I got to my first meetup for career therapy, and I was like, hey everyone, I guess I need this too. How y'all doing? And so just being around those people and like having something, like, it's so great that you're all here in this community and doing this, because that's going to help with the positivity, and then make little small factions within it too, like help each other out. But where it goes wrong, I think where it goes wrong is when people isolate, when they retreat away from things and start to really just kind of get in their own head and start letting that spiral happen. And the really bad habits that start to come up are like drinking too much and not paying attention to your sleep schedule and just kind of letting what would be normal habits that just would happen throughout the week just sort of creep and creep and creep. And with all that extra time, I don't think we're really trained how to use it. And so a lot of times we can just pick up video games or whatever the vice is that you have that can sort of fill the time and distract us. And so that distraction, I think that's what we really need to put barriers around. It's not eliminating it. That's like, that's prohibition. People will fight back, right? But what we need to do is just say, I know I like, watching TV or binging Netflix or playing video games or having a cocktail or whatever it is, just putting that in the schedule. So I'm going to do this from this time to this time, and I'm going to go to bed at this time, or I'm going to wake up at this time. Like having those barriers, or let's say boundaries, those boundaries are really important. And so that's a big thing that I help people with, is just what are the boundaries you need to set? And then sometimes people get really ambitious. They're like, oh, I have so much time. I'm going to do all these new things. I'm going to learn how to, work out. I'm going to learn how to eat well. I'm going to learn how to cook. I'm going to learn how to do the job search. It's like one at a time. And this is something I have to consistently relearn over and over again because I get too ambitious. And so I'm like, nope, okay, I tried that. And I guess I can't do yoga every single day. I guess I'll have to, do it a little more sporadically. And so that's where I think as we kind of, go back and forth between like, I almost feel like we're always like being torn between giving into our vices and then beating ourselves up for them. And there's this middle way that I always try and focus on between the two. It's like, we shouldn't be completely giving into everything that feels good. And then we also shouldn't be beating ourselves up constantly. And it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to allow this, and then I'm going to allow that. And then kind of slowly but surely getting a good rhythm going.
Yeah. If you guys have questions, this would be a great time to hop in. You can send them to me privately if you would like. Okay, so a question just came in, actually. Let me quickly summarize that because I like it and then I'll ask the question. But as a quick summary, I think the context and the importance of boundary setting and time blocking is very, very clear there. Martin, your example of by 8 a.m., you got to be up and you got to do your live stream. Any of us can have a version of that. Any of us can have, well, by 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or at the latest 5 p.m. is when I finish my whatever. I do X, right? I know for some of us it's exercise. For others, making it a little more public, meaning I have to get up and write my LinkedIn post, or I have to get up and do whatever, start writing my blog, or whatever the thing is. We can have that first thing of the day, and we can have that last thing of the day. And Brian, I totally agree. Using this as an opportunity to move into the more positive things, into connecting with other people, into focusing on exercise, and making sure, like Martin said, to do 1, maybe 2, not 8 of them at once is really important. So the question that came in is, what's the best technique that Martin and Brian give the clients to get out of a bad day or a rut? Do you just throw in the towel for the day because maybe you just got a few rejections and, screw it? Or do you keep plugging away? We'll go to Brian for that one. Brian, if you talk to somebody and someone's like, man, my best employee quit and I lost a big contract and my dog ran away and I had to chase it around for an hour. And it's only 2:00. What do you advise me to do? Throw in the towel and go grab a beer and watch Netflix and take the day off, or like get back on that horse, son? Like, you got this. Both of those are kind of extremes, but what would you tell somebody?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like, I think you picked some extremes there, but really, I think first of all, it depends upon how are you wired. I mean, there are some people that, man, when they get hit, they need time with people. And then there's other people that when they get hit hard with something, they need time alone to process and to reinvigorate. I'm one that I need physical activity and time with people. And so oftentimes that'll mean, hey, I'll grab somebody to go for a walk. In my younger days, it was always go for a long run with somebody, but those days are over. But it's really unique to the individual. And so making sure you understand how are you wired, but to Martin's point, it's, set a time for it. I'm probably not going to go on a 4-hour walk, but I'm going to go on a 1-hour walk, maybe a 1-hour walk with somebody, and then I'm going to get back after it. That tends to be my approach.
Yeah. I want to ask a little bit in the last few minutes about philosophies, because tactics are great, but they're kind of got to be unique to everybody. Philosophy, if you don't know what to do, is something you can keep coming back to. So I want to ask both of you the same question. And as a reminder to everybody else, when we break out into our networking groups in 5-8 minutes or so, I want you to have that one thing that you do or you want to be doing to combat rejection or a tough time or a difficulty or something like that. So my question is about philosophies that you might have for yourselves. I know both of you are coaches, and I was speaking to a coach earlier today. I was like, your LinkedIn's kind of confusing. I'm not totally sure what you do. And she goes, yeah, the shoemaker's kids never have any shoes. So I know we don't always take our own advice, but so I'm going to ask you specifically what are philosophies that you come to. I'll share one of my favorite just stories as you think about this. The thing I come back to all the time after failure over and over again, I track, so I'm an entrepreneur, we're trying to raise money. I track investor rejections. I've gotten rejected from 17 companies in the last 4 weeks. And these are companies like I had a phone call with, not just like sent an email. So it happens all the time. The thing I come back to all the time is one of my favorite sports facts ever, which is if you count all the shots that Kobe Bryant missed in his career, he would have, and you put that on a list, it would have been something like the 70th most shots taken in the history of the NBA. Meaning Kobe Bryant is a legend, not because he hits a lot of shots, but it's because he takes a lot of shots. He has missed more shots than most people have ever taken. And that is one thing I come back to over and over and over again, personally, when I miss shots on goal myself. We'll start with Brian disappeared. So I guess we're going to start with Martin. Maybe it was an epic sneeze. I'm not sure. Epic sneeze. We'll let Brian recover for a moment then. Sure. I think the house is shaking. We'll go to Martin.
Yeah.
We'll go to Martin to talk about philosophy, and then we'll go to Brian.
Well, I'm always a fan of the phrase or the serenity prayer that says, give me the courage to know what I can control, the grace to let go of the things that I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I feel like that's a huge piece of the job search, right? I actually got into an argument with someone on YouTube the other day, and they were like, the job search is broken. This is all BS. Why are you saying accept it instead of fix it? And I go, fix what? Like, how are you, the job seeker, going to fix it? And he's like, I don't have an answer to that, but here's all the problems. And it's like that person that goes to the boss and it's like, I don't know, or here's a whole bunch of problems of what's happening at the company. Okay, do you have any solutions? No, I just wanted you to know the problems. It's like, no one wants that person on the team, right? So I'm like, unless you have solutions and you can actually affect change, which I guess the only way to do that is to get the job and then get on the hiring team and then start changing their hiring practices, which is a very active tactical thing to do. You really shouldn't be worried about it. Oh, I have to upload my resume and then retype it. Okay, you either do it or you don't. It's not a good or bad thing. It just is. And that ability to let go of things that are outside of your control and only focus on what is, like for me, I work with schools. Their application process is terrible. So sometimes I'll sit down to fill out the application and I open their webpage and it's a pain in the butt. And I look at it and I'm like, nah, I'm just not going to work with this school. And I just move on to the next one. They lost out. And so that mindset for me of like, I'm only really going to get invested emotionally on the things that I can affect is helpful for me to keep my sanity. And then realizing that, kind of as a footnote, everyone else's life is a complete mess. All right. So you look at other job seekers, oh, they all have it together. You look at the person who gets the job, oh, they got luckier. They did something I didn't do. Or you look at someone who has a job, they're probably just hanging on by a thread. Or you look at the company and you're like, that company looks so amazing. I can't wait to work there. It's my dream job. It's not. They are running around with their hair on fire too. Like everyone is running around with their hair on fire to some extent, maybe some more than others. But to look at the world as everyone's perfect Instagram, highlights, whatever, I just don't find that to be helpful. And so I'm constantly every day reminding myself that I might be struggling on certain things, but other people are struggling as well. And that kind of makes me feel less alone in the struggle.
Yeah, I like that. The serenity prayer is a strong one that I've stuck to. I just dropped it into the chat, um, and that's an easy one to stick to. It's it's sometimes screw it. It is what it is, and let's keep going. Brian, what about you? What are some philosophies, quotes, or practices that you come back to?
Yeah, there's one that I've kept up for probably 30 years now. There's a passage in scripture says, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." And that balance to that. And so every day, am I doing something where I'm growing in my knowledge? Maybe sometimes it's a specific, topic or even a hobby. Sometimes it may be that I'm going to be better. I'm going to learn how to go up a steep hill on my mountain bike better than I do now, because it takes some different, real tactics, But then stature, I am a big believer that, if our body is physically in shape and we're healthy, and that just it alleviates issues that are so helpful. And so that stature side, our faith, working on our faith, and then looking out and caring for others, every day. If we do those four things, we'll probably have a lot of good days, and probably not have some issues that we would otherwise. So that's pretty underlying for me, without going into specifics of like different situations and things like that.
All right. Well, I appreciate both of you sharing. Folks, let's give a big round of applause to Martin and Brian.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much to both of you for joining. And then Martin and Brian, I'm going to ask you to give a big round of applause to everybody who joined. This is a tough conversation at a tough time. So thank
Absolutely.
you folks for participating in it. One quick announcement, and then we're going to break up into our networking groups and we'll get everybody out by 5 o'clock Eastern. I just dropped, I think one of the really important things that we talked about is what are the things you do regularly, right? It's not the once in a whiles, because then you spike and then you drop. It's what are the things that you do regularly. I talk all the time, obviously, about interviewing. That's Riveter's main thing. But the reason I love interviewing is because it makes you very vulnerable. It makes you a better communicator. It allows you to dig deeper into yourself by answering these questions and figuring out your own styles. So go out and check out the interview tool. The Riveter interview tool lets you browse how other people answer interview questions. It lets you answer your own questions. And then if you want to, make it available for other Riveter members and coaches to give feedback. It's a great thing to do once a day, every day. Answer a question, make yourself uncomfortable, become a better communicator. If you want to try it out in an event format, every single Wednesday, we do what's called a mock interview speed dating event, which I think we have some members who joined for the first time on Wednesday, seem to have a good enough experience that they came to this event. So check it out. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way. There you go. I saw a thumbs up somewhere. It's a great way to improve and have fun. So, and of course, all of it is free. So I'm going to break us up into a few breakout rooms here for 15 minutes. Again, come in, quick introduction of who you are, the kind of job you're looking for, and then one thing you actively do or you want to start doing in order to handle rejection. There's going to be about 5 to 6 people in each room, so it'll just be a few minutes per person and a nice way to get to know each other. Let me make sure everybody here is properly. Let's switch you and you. All right. I think we are, sorry, just making sure Brian and Martin are in different rooms. That would be an unfair advantage. All right. The rooms are open and I'll see everybody back in 15 minutes.